it's easy to point out who was a stud from the stats on last Saturday, but who stood out to Jimmy and me that maybe you need to know about but don't?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson with the AHSA Radio Network. That's me. Jimmy Stein with Bama Online. That's him. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. I'll tell you about 5 Hour Energy. I even had a 5 Hour Energy earlier today because the drive from the beach was not fun and very, very difficult. So I want to thank all you everydayers for chiming in. I want to thank all you newbies for joining us. Welcome to our humble abode. Jimmy, you've been rewatching the game. I haven't had a chance to yet, but I was thinking about it on the way up here because I had a lot of time because the traffic was awful on 65. And I was just thinking about the game and the Ryan Williams thing. We'll talk about him winning Freshman of the Week, the first of many. I should have done an over-under on that. How many times will Ryan Williams win Freshman of the Week, and should have set it at 3. That 3. I would take over because now, especially now, since it already has 1. But it's easy to talk about Ryan Williams. It's easy to talk about Jalen Milroe. It's easy to talk about Justice Haynes. It's easy to talk about some of the big play, Jahad Campbell, and some of the big plays.
Ryan Williams podcast.
Yeah.
So that's what's easy to talk about Ryan. It's the whole Ryan Williams podcast. And now Ryan's got his own podcast.
I know. I don't know how to feel about that.
Me neither. I saw that news and I'm like, you already have a podcast.
We just hadn't told you about it yet. You just hadn't heard of us. But there's some dudes that played well in that game.
Oh, I'm sure he and his lawyers have.
Yeah. There's some, we got a cease and desist. Quit calling it the Ryan Williams podcast. But no, there's some dudes that played well the other night that, we probably hadn't mentioned. And we tried to mention them all. But Emmanuel Henderson comes to mind. And the reason he comes to mind for me, there was one specific play where a receiver caught it. And I can't remember the receiver that had the catch. And E-Man, as we call him, we're allowed to call him, he was blocking his man through the whistle, past to where that guy was like, hey, did I accidentally text your girlfriend? He just kept blocking him. And I thought it was wonderful. And it just tells me, like, this dude gets it. This is a dude who hasn't been playing, hadn't been playing enough or a ton. And he's sort of a jack of all trades guy that hadn't necessarily found a home yet. We hope he finds one at receiver. And he's just out there doing what he needs to do. Even though he's not the main guy, obviously. And he did get a catch later on. And I swear, if I'm lying, I'm dying. I told the guys I was with watching the game, I said, they're about to throw it to Emmanuel Henderson right here. He needs it. I can see that he's about to get it. It wasn't like a tip from the quarterback. It was something that you could sort of see it developing, that he's getting, like, maybe they noticed his blocking.
Yeah,
we're exactly. Like, we need to reward it.
Exactly. No, I think I think stuff like that exactly happens. They see in the booth, they're like, that was a great block by E-Man. Let's run this play, because they know on that play where he's lined up, he's the primary. So at least that's a great opportunity for him because, hey, you're the primary receiver on this specific play call. And absolutely that happens. And I love that call E-Man did. And it wasn't just that play, but there were several plays where he blocked really well. I think now he'll be in the running for best blocker. I think K-Law and Kobe Prentice are pretty good blockers. Kobe got called for a hold, though, one time in the game, but they're good blockers, too. But I think E-Man might be in the running for best blocker for among the wideout group. So that'll be interesting to watch. What I've been impressed with really through my rewatch is a couple of unsung guys. Here's one, Parker Brailsford. He played exceptional. Yeah, there was the one really bad snap that was a turnover, and yeah, you got to give him bad marks because that was a turnover. As we learned from Kalen DeBoer in the press conference, so there was a miscommunication between him and Jalen that led to that. Brailsford was in the middle of changing the blocking assignments up front. So can you imagine, everybody listening to the show, very few of us played center. Some people listening to the show might have played offensive line, but I bet very few of you played center. But imagine changing the offensive line block. So that's what you're focusing on. You're telling your teammates, hey, we're all shifting right or we're all shifting left, and he's doing it with one hand and he's making the line calls. And then he hears the clap. And he's not supposed to hear a clap at that time because apparently when the quarterback hears or is aware that the center is changing the line call, you hold off on clapping for the ball. Milroe didn't hear it. He clapped. Brailsford's in the middle of, he's busy. So he snapped it while he was busy. The whole point is it wasn't good. And when we get poor marks because there's a miscommunication between Brailsford and Milroe that led to the turnover, but that's not the situation we had with Seth McLaughlin a year ago, where Seth continually just physically made multiple bad snaps over the course of the season. This was a different scenario. But I bring up Parker Brailsford because other than that one play, which was bad, he blocked fantastic. You repeatedly saw Brailsford burying people, using his athleticism. I think it was on the Jam Miller touchdown. This could be wrong. On one of the touchdowns, Parker Brailsford snaps the ball and then manages to get out in front of the play. He's the lead blocker. That just takes incredible athleticism for the center to be a pulling center on power plays. He blocked great. Other unsung heroes in terms of, I'm sure it happened, but I did not see CJ Dupree or Robbie Oust miss a block. I just didn't see it. If it happened, I didn't see it. I watch every play real close. I did not see Oust or CJ Dupree miss a block. They got their guy every time. And they were on the field a lot. We ran a lot more 12 personnel than I assumed we would. And I guess that gets back to kind of what we said all offseason. Hey, don't think DeBoer is going to get here and just chunk it all over the place. He's going to run the ball. And we were in 12 personnel a lot. And, hey, not all the runs are in 12. Not all the throws are in 11. You have to mix it up, and we did. But we were in 12 personnel, which means 2 tight ends, a lot more than I thought.
By the way, while you were talking, I went back and watched the Jam Miller run on ESPN, and it was Brailsford. He did pull out. He snapped it, and very quickly. I mean, quickly is relative. Because when you see him run and then Jam Miller run by him, you're like, oh, how do you describe him as quick? Because he's a center and he had to snap the ball well and then move. I mean, I don't mean this. I say this with all love. I feel like if we had asked Seth to do that, there's no way it's going to happen both ways. Like Brailsford did both things, all 3 things really. I mean, he snaps it, he gets to his man quickly, and then he blocks his man. And that set up the whole thing. And it is really did. It's mind-blowing how much of a difference this is making. In one game against Western Kentucky, I know. But I'm saying it's a dang good start.
When people say he's too light, oh, he's too small. Well, football's constantly give and take, right? I mean, you get something, you got to give something. And we're giving up some size there. But look what we get. I mean, this is probably one of the more athletic centers in all of college football, certainly in the SEC. Yeah, he's a little light in the pants for a center, as you'd say, but he's quick and athletic. And, he's a guy that I think deserves a shout-out while recognizing the bad snap led to Alabama's only turnover. But, again, miscommunication, not a physical thing. And you know they've addressed that. That's so many things that go wrong are either unfixable, like your center is heavy-legged and unable to lead power plays, or some things like the miscommunication is fixable. Okay, guys, this is how we're going to prevent this from happening in the future.
You know, some things are unfixable, like you just can't win an opening game anymore. And there's at least one.
I know a team. I know a team like that.
I do know a team that is apparently having a fixing it problem with that, and we'll address that a little bit later on, Jimmy. But I'm going to tell you about 5-Hour Energy. Look, I used 5-Hour Energy today in the car. Traffic was so bad. I was tired, been at the beach, been watching a lot of football, staying up late, all those things. And I needed to pick me up. And it worked great. And it kept me alert. It didn't make me jittery. I was in the car and I had a 5-Hour Energy and it did just what it needed to do. It kept me up. It kept me alert. It didn't make me like antsy, like I got to get out of this car and, run a 5K. I didn't have to do any of that. I was still cool and calm and collected like I always am. But I was also just, aware of everything. Whereas, the monotony of I-65 coming back from the beach on Labor Day, y'all know, y'all been there. It can get you. 5-Hour Energy helped it not get me. So, look, you want to get in the zone with 5 Hour Energy shots. They give you the feeling of alertness and energy you need to get into that zone with no sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. So there's a flavor for everybody. On the site, you have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. Look, if you go to 5 Hour Energy, that's 5, the number 5, Hour Energy, .com and get some 5 Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB and receive 20% off. This offer is only valid to September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and get yourself energized, yo. Want to remind everybody, you can still go check out all the college football previews that Jimmy was a part of, and just sort of see where people have gone wrong already. And there are some people that have already gone wrong. Trust me on this.
Heck, I've been wrong about a thing or two, I'm certain.
Yeah, I was wrong. Look, I had A&M, but I was right on one thing, Jimmy. I told you USC is going to be a thing. With
they are.
Yeah,
I was impressed. That was a great game. That was very enjoyable.
That was fun.
USC versus LSU. Great. Both those teams are good. I know Alabama fans, we love to make fun of LSU or get on LSU, and they did lose. I think that might be a pretty good football team. They're probably not done losing because I think that secondary they have can be had, and Miller Moss sort of had his way with them. But that's a good football team. Nussmeier,
we're going to talk about them in the third segment. I do want to talk some recruiting right now with Turbo Rogers coming in for a visit. I feel better about his being in this class now, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tim Watts with a great report there, some scoop from BOL. And look, this is, you can paint between the lines, but like I said, Turbo committed to the last staff, never performed for the new staff, and he didn't really have junior year tape because he went to IMG, and that's just a weird situation. And there's very little junior film of Turbo out there. All they wanted to do was see him play. And Luke saw him play and had a great report here. He's played in the second game. And I think basically, my take on Tim's report is that they're impressed. They're impressed. So, they want Turbo in this class. Turbo would like to be at Alabama. Right now, things look good. Now, Ohio State's going to make their run at him. Georgia may make a run at Turbo. Auburn may make a run at Turbo. But for now, he is still a part of this class. And it looks good. I mean, in other words, my take is Alabama's seen film of the first 2 games he played in, and they're like, that's a guy we want on the team. Saban was right. This was a good eval after all. Saban was right. And but boy, that's going to give Alabama a lot of backs depending on what Jam Miller does. Jam Miller's the only draft eligible Alabama back. Could go pro. He's got to play 11 more games like he played Saturday night. Saturday night, to me, Jam Miller looked like an NFL football player. Got to play 11 more games like that. But Jam would be the only guy eligible to go to the draft. That would leave us with, 4 backs if Jam left. Then you're adding these 2 guys that are committed, right? A.K. Deere from Quitman, Mississippi, and now Turbo Rogers from Montgomery. So, you're probably good with about 6 backs. That's quite a bit, quite a few. So I think they would sit right there with 6. And again, it could even be 7 if Jam comes back.
Yeah. And look, here's the thing. I think Turbo could also be sort of a scoot him around other places kind of guy, almost like a K-Law. He's got a K-Law vibe about him.
Well, he's built differently, but I like what you're saying about built differently, but a guy who can move around that could be running back.
And he catches well.
I would say of Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's like Jahmyr Gibbs in that way, and Gibbs is a running back, and Gibbs plays running back in the NFL for Detroit, but they love throwing him the ball, and they'll put him in motion and send him out to the slot. I think that's what Turbo is, just sort of a utility guy. And K-Law is like that as well, or can be. K-Law is just, 210 pounds. Turbo's getting there, though, and I'm a fan. I've always liked Turbo Rogers. I was just sending the message the whole time, look, you don't need a lot of backs. And A.K. Deere is a guy A.K. Deere is the 5-star plus type guy. And once A.K. Deere was in the fold, I kind of looked at Turbo like, well, yeah, he's a good player. Let's see what happens. Well, Alabama really, really wants him. And I get it. Turbo's got some real skills and a home run hitter. And like I said, I'm not saying he's Jahmyr Gibbs, but I think his size and skill set is in the Jahmyr Gibbs ballpark.
Xavier Crowell was there, or Crowell. How are we saying that?
I think Crowell. I'm not sure,
Crowell.
but I do know this curveball about Xavier. He actually goes by EJ, which is easier for everybody.
I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, my good buddy. Shout out to Randy Kennedy. I doubt he's listening to the show. He doesn't sometimes though. Randy Kennedy for AL.com was covering Jackson's game and heard him referred to as EJ, and even asked him in a post-game interview, "Oh, what do you go by?" He's like EJ. So
good. Hey, thank you,
Randy,
for all involved. But he was there. Alabama is considered to be an early front runner. Alabama fan. Obviously, you have 2 long touchdown runs. I mean, that's got to look good to a running back like him. That they're going to utilize a running back in a lot of different ways. So I feel like Alabama's in good shape there. There were also 3 guys there that have now one of them recently came on the radar, but there are 2 others. Number 1 being the JUCO tight end, Emeka Ilo. Is that how we're saying that?
I haven't said it yet. I'm going to make an official announcement. I am going to wait till he gets an offer before I try to learn that name.
Okay, fair enough.
Doesn't have an offer yet, but Alabama's interested.
All right, then there's Mason Dunn, who is a 4-star cornerback from Tupelo, committed to Ole Miss, and Antavius Richardson, who we have talked about on here. We knew he'd be visiting. South Florida commitment, lots of speed. What you can tell is Alabama is looking for another defensive back, and maybe not a defensive back that, I mean, of course, you'd love if Naheem Alford said, "Hey, I want to come to Alabama," you do it. But I think that bridge is sailed.
Well,
that bridge had a sail on it. I don't know. But maybe not. Who knows? But what I'm saying is they clearly want another defensive back. And,
yeah, they do. They're short there. They're short at safety. Now, I think both these kids, Tim Watts and Andrew Bone, have done some good reporting here on these new 25 guys. And to me, it's not so much, hey, is Alabama going to sign this Richardson kid? Hey, is Alabama going to sign the new kid from Tupelo? I don't know. I do know this. They've offered 2 brand new 25 DBs. There are no safeties currently committed in this Alabama class. Seems to me the message is clear. They would like to bring in another defensive back or 2, particularly one that can play safety. You kind of got corner covered with Chuck McDonald and Dijon Lee from California. They're kind of got corner, but you need safety. So they're looking. And these guys are interesting. They're interesting. They're not super highly rated, but I had this thought earlier. I won't do a rant, but I had this thought earlier. I've always said I wish recruiting fans would basically analogize everything to the NFL draft, because we all know the draft so well. It's one of the most popular things that happens in American sports every year. And there is a lot of analogies that work when you compare the draft to recruiting. Guys like these 2 DBs I'm talking about, they're not 5 stars. They're not going to be ranked too high. It's late in the game for them to be ranked really high and be invited to these national all-star games and get a high ranking. What they are is 5th and 6th round picks, okay? And we know the draft is all about who you get on night 1, and to some extent, day 2 is full of guys we know, and they make a big deal and put them prime time. Day 3 starts at 11 in the morning. Most people aren't watching. A lot of people don't know the names. I don't know that all the networks cover day 3, or at least they do from a pick-by-pick standpoint. Might have to be on NFL Network, get a breakdown of all those guys that are on day 3. But guess where you build your team? The successful teams in the NFL that are competing for playoff spots, they're drafting well on day 3. They're finding starters. They're finding people that help them on day 3. That's what these guys are that Alabama's looking at late. They're, quote, day 3 guys in the draft. But we can sit here, Luke, and do a whole show on naming day 3 guys who are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Tom Brady was a day 3 guy. I mean, so day 3 guys aren't write-offs. They're not, hey, we don't care about these guys. Sure, there's a lower hit rate. But you've got to do the same work on the day 3 guys that you do on the day 1 guys. And that's what Alabama's staff is doing. They're putting in the work and say, hey, can this guy play? Can he help us win? And so I hope people look at it that way instead of, oh, he's just a 3-star. They're putting in work and evaluating the heck out of these guys. And there are day 3 guys that help NFL teams win every Sunday.
There's no doubt about it. And we're going to talk about some 5 stars that may be disappointed in the SEC and around college football here recently. But time to talk a little about Ultimate College Football HC. Hey, Locked On Bama fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up about a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to have as much fun with as I do. And that's Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing gaming simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. You can being the coach of any team you want, maybe LSU, and maybe you'd get that opening win. From recruiting players and hiring coaching staffs to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? Some coaches can't. I think you can. And here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the game. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but will shape the future and the legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football AC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play it on the go when you want to, and that is a big deal. And, of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Bama fans. Use your promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of that perk as it'll get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up in the App Store. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. You know what? One of my favorite things to do is on this Monday episode is all that we've done for years is always talk about what's going on around the league and around college football in general. And I think we can start with the LSU game yesterday. And look, I've never had a problem with LSU at all. I've always sort of dug LSU. Like every time I've ever gone down there, and I've gone down there, I've probably been to 10 Bama games down there and some other games too. And I've always had a blast. Like, you know, you don't go around flipping people off, and usually everybody gets along with you no matter what. You know, Locked On has a new LSU host, and I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but boy, he hates him some Alabama, and he brings up Alabama a lot. And so I got to say, I chuckled a little bit when USC beat LSU last night, and then when in the post-game rant with T-Bob Hebert, who is pretty funny, by the way.
That was funny.
Yeah, he
NSFW.
Not
NSFW. Yeah, it reminded me of the old Talking Tuscaloosa episodes.
Yes, those are a lot of those.
we weren't quite that bad. Frankly, it was during the Saban era, so we never really lost.
That's true too. But the new Locked On LSU host was like, well, at least we're not like a blank program like Alabama and play South Alabama or Western Kentucky. Number one, the funny thing is Alabama's always played a pretty tough opener. Now, the last couple of years, it's been Texas on the second game of the year before they were in the conference course. But we've always played in these non-conference things wherever and done pretty well. Saban didn't lose them, by the way. Secondly, LSU plays South Alabama week 4, man. I mean, don't say that, and then they're on your schedule. They're not on our schedule.
What's the difference when you play these games? It's so crazy to me that people.
That's what his point was like. We need a tune-up game, and T-Bob Hebert was like, "We need a tune-up game. I'm tired of these stuff." I'm like, first of all, you don't understand. You get respect playing this game. I know this as an Alabama fan because we've played a lot of them. You get more respect doing this. It's better to play this game. I'll tell you what, if you had said, hey, Luke, you can open up against USC in Vegas, or you can open up at home against Western Kentucky, I'm taking USC in Vegas all day.
Well, I would argue that maybe the scheduling these games has sort of passed. And by that, I mean, the conference now is so tough. I don't know that it's important to play these games anymore in terms of schedule strength. The committee, I'm pretty big on this issue, actually. The committee is actually going to have to prove to me or show me that they care deeply about strength of schedule before I schedule myself out of the playoff.
Fair.
I want to see what the committee does about strength of schedule, because if they don't care, if all they care about is the number in your loss column, then you're nuts for scheduling USC in Las Vegas. You're nuts for scheduling Wisconsin at Wisconsin.
We're nuts for Florida. We're at Florida State and Wisconsin at home next year.
There's no way we should.
Florida mixed in, I think.
there's no way we should play at Florida State and Wisconsin at home if the committee doesn't care about strength of schedule. That's just suicidal for no good. I mean, there's just no reason to do
Florida
that.
State should want out of that too. And here's my thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to keep talking about what happened this weekend, but I do want to say this. I'm a big, I really do want to keep scheduling at least one non-con game that's tough and fun. But I do look around at some of these other places, and I get it. I get Kentucky. I get what Kentucky's doing. But, I mean, I look at Georgia, next year. They have nobody. Now, I know somebody canceled on them or the Oklahoma thing got moved or whatever, but they put in Marshall, and I'm like, that's not right. I mean, if Georgia's going to do it, that we should sort of copy what Georgia's going to do because but now I also look at somebody like, even Auburn. I mean, scheduling Cal and Baylor ain't the same as scheduling some of these other teams. It's not the same as Florida State or USC or Ohio State. Alabama's got Ohio State in 2027, y'all, and 28. I mean, that's coming up. And so, and we got West Virginia the same year we play Ohio State 1 year. We're going to have to change that. I wanted to love it. I wanted to embrace it, but I think Jimmy's right. Doing 2 non-con games next year at Florida State to open the season on August 30th, and then you play Wisconsin, the third game of the year. And then you also have to go to Georgia. You also have to go to Auburn. You also have LSU and Tennessee at home. You also have to go to Missouri, who's been good here lately. You also have to bring in Oklahoma. That's suicidal. It's stupid.
And my thing about the schedule, again, maybe the committee is going to send a message with this new 12-team playoff that strength of schedule matters to them a lot. Maybe they will. But until they do, I'm going to assume they aren't. And in my opinion, they haven't in the past. And I know people are saying, but Alabama got in last year with a loss and Florida State was undefeated. That was strength of schedule.
And a quarterback.
Yeah. But Florida State lost their quarterback. And I've said this a million times. Look at their final top 25. It lines up perfectly from 1 through 25 with losses in the column, with the exception of Alabama and Texas ahead of Florida State. That's the only exception. Further, they had to pick a group of 5 team to play in the New Year's 6. They ignored strength of schedule entirely and put in the undefeated Liberty team when the other group of 5 teams had played a much tougher schedule and had proven they were a better team than Liberty, who just knocked over 12 tomato cans and got that. So they've shown that they don't care about strength of schedule.
Well, in fairness, on the basketball side, we have seen that strength of schedule matters.
It's totally different.
I know it's different because there's more games, but I'm saying that if they show that same kind of modus operandi, then we're down with it. So we're
correct.
Now let's get back to some more of these other games. Georgia kicked butt. I mean, no other way to say it. Clemson look like a program that's the tide is flowing outwardly for them. And Georgia's going to be tough, man. I'm telling you, I mean, y'all know this. Georgia's going to be hell on wheels when they come to Tuscaloosa.
One of the best teams in the country again, maybe the best team.
I'm glad to know that we could have Caden Proctor back by then. His injury apparently isn't as bad as we feared. Then some other things. I mean, just the SEC overall, a lot of blowouts. Tennessee looking good. That game scares me more now. LSU, look, I thought this was again. I want to say bad things about them because they've been saying bad things about us, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna take the higher road here because I really believe LSU looked pretty doggone good. They just had some flubs toward the end that cost them that game. They had some mistakes. I thought Brian Kelly's banging the podium was so phony. I don't know. I mean, it was as phony as his accent when he had that big speech when he first got to LSU. I mean, you're not a bang the podium guy, man, and that's okay. You're not a bang the podium guy. They're coaches who are. It ain't you, and that's okay.
I thought it was banging the podium was loud, but not for the message. To me, it sent the opposite message. Was
exactly.
Hey, I thought y'all played well. You're making it sound like y'all have a culture issue and y'all are in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, he was basically saying, we acted like we thought we had the game won and we didn't. And he sort of not threw the team under the bus, but he was upset with his team's attitude on the sideline and everything else. And I'm like, maybe the right take here was we got some things to work on, but overall, we look like a pretty good football team, and I think we're going to be really good. Now we know we got A, B, C, D, and E we got to work on, but overall we're pretty good because that was a playoff team that we pushed to 0 on the clock. And our new quarterback played great, and our front seven looked hugely improved. You should have said all that. Instead, he banged on the table and I think acted like they have a bigger problem than it looked to me on TV. So,
and let me say a couple of things really quickly. Texas A&M, I thought Texas A&M looked okay. Connor Weigman didn't look great.
Yeah,
but I thought their defense looked pretty good. I thought their running game was okay. And I think that as for a first game under a first coach and your first contest is against the top 10 Notre Dame squad and you fought them tooth and nail, not bad. People are really down on A&M today, and I think that they're going to be better towards the end of the year. Also, a shout-out to Harrison Wallace, the wide receiver at Penn State. I'm using him as an example earlier this year talking about in-state guys. Like, hey, I hadn't heard about this guy. I really heard about this when we were doing the whole Alabama-Auburn thing. I want to give him some kudos because that guy's from Pike Road, and he's at Penn State, and he kicked butt this weekend. And so I'm happy to see it. And so congratulations to him. And we'll continue some more college football stuff. And, of course, we did mention that Ryan Williams won SEC Player of the Week, and Keon Sabb won Defensive Player of the Week.
Freshman of the week.
Freshman of the week, sorry. And Keon Sabb won Defensive Player of the Week. So that was fantastic. Good start for the newcomers.
Well earned for both of them.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.